Portland had a way of wrapping itself around my heart, its vibrant streets filled with the chatter of locals and the rich aroma of fresh coffee. I often found myself wandering through the farmers' markets, where the colors of ripe produce seemed to mirror the emotions I had tucked away. In those moments, I felt detached from my own life, a mere observer in a world bursting with connection and joy. My marriage, once a source of comfort, now felt like a well-worn path leading me nowhere. Henry, my husband, remained blissfully unaware of my dissatisfaction. He was consumed by work and his own pursuits, leaving little room for deep conversations or emotional intimacy. Our evenings often consisted of him sprawled on the couch, engrossed in sports or scrolling through his phone while I sat nearby, lost in thought. The silence between us grew heavier with each passing day. One Friday evening, I decided to escape our routine. The local bar down the street beckoned with its warm lights and laughter spilling out onto the sidewalk. As I stepped inside, the familiar hum of conversation washed over me like a wave. The air buzzed with energy. This was where people came to unwind and share their lives. I spotted Jake, Henry's best friend, seated at the bar nursing a pint of local craft beer. He looked up as I approached, surprise flickering across his face before he broke into a smile. "Hey there. Didn't expect to see you out tonight." "Just needed a change of scenery," I replied, sliding onto the stool next to him. "How's everything?" "Busy as usual," Jake said, waving to the bartender for another round. "Henry's been working late again?" I nodded slowly, feeling an unexpected sense of camaraderie with him in that moment. "Yeah. It's been quiet at home." Jake leaned in slightly, his voice lowering as if sharing a secret. "You know, sometimes it feels like we're all just going through the motions." His words struck a chord within me, an echo of my own unspoken frustrations. "Exactly," I whispered back, surprised at how easily we fell into this shared vulnerability. We talked about everything and nothing, our favorite spots around Portland and our mutual love for hiking in Forest Park. Each word exchanged felt like peeling back layers that had long since hardened between us. Then came the twist that shifted everything, as we laughed about some ridiculous moment from our pasts involving Henry's clumsiness during a camping trip. Jake's expression turned serious for just an instant. "You know," he said quietly, "I've seen how things have changed between you two." My heart raced at his observation. It was both unsettling and oddly comforting that someone else noticed what lay beneath our surface. "It's complicated," I admitted. "I get it," he replied softly, looking into his glass as if searching for answers within it. Before long, we found ourselves discussing deeper feelings, our hopes and regrets, all while surrounded by laughter and clinking glasses from other patrons unaware of our intimate exchange. As we finished our drinks and prepared to leave, Jake hesitated before speaking again. "If you ever need someone to talk to, you know where to find me." His words lingered in the air between us like an unspoken invitation, a thread woven into my fabric of discontentment that tugged insistently at my heart. I left the bar that night feeling lighter yet burdened by something new, a spark ignited in an unexpected place. The thrill mingled with apprehension as I walked home under Portland's twinkling streetlights. The next few weeks unfolded like pages from an uncharted novel. Each day brought new encounters with Jake that danced along the edges of friendship and something more profound. We began meeting more frequently under various pretexts, sometimes coincidentally bumping into each other at local events or grabbing coffee when Henry was preoccupied. But guilt gnawed at me like an unwelcome guest. Every shared laugh took place against a backdrop of secrecy that felt increasingly heavy on my conscience. One afternoon at a street fair bustling with families enjoying cotton candy and live music from local bands, Jake caught my gaze across the crowd. He waved me over with an easy smile that sent butterflies fluttering in my stomach despite myself. "Hey! You made it," he exclaimed as I approached him near one of the booths selling handmade jewelry. "I couldn't resist," I replied playfully while scanning our surroundings nervously. As we chatted about everything from festival food to local art vendors showcasing their crafts around us, Jake leaned closer again, his voice dropping low amidst laughter surrounding us. You know, sometimes it feels good to break free from expectations. His statement hung heavily between us. It resonated deeply within me but also sent chills down my spine as if daring me to consider what breaking free might mean. Just then, a momentary lapse in judgment led to an impulsive decision neither of us had anticipated. We kissed softly amidst the chaos surrounding us, the world fading away until only we remained suspended in time. The thrill surged through me but quickly dissipated into confusion when reality crashed back in. Guilt wrapped around my heart tighter than before, a reminder that this fleeting moment held consequences far beyond what either of us could foresee. I shouldn't have done that, I stammered awkwardly after pulling away too soon. Jake looked taken aback but also intrigued by my reaction. Uncertainty flickered across his face before he smiled again, a hint of something deeper lurking beneath his casual demeanor now apparent in his eyes. We can figure this out, he said gently but firmly as if grounding both himself and me amidst swirling emotions threatening to overwhelm us both. Yet even as hope flickered within me like candlelight against darkness, the weighty realization settled heavily upon my chest. Navigating this newfound connection would come at great cost, a cost yet unknown but unmistakably real nonetheless. The street fair buzzed with life, vibrant colors, and the scent of fresh pastries wafting through the air. I wandered through the stalls, my heart racing as I spotted him among the crowd. It was as if he radiated warmth, pulling me closer despite the guilt still gnawing at my insides. The laughter around us felt distant, a mere backdrop to the tension that simmered between us. "Hey," he said, his voice low and inviting as he approached. The casual way he smiled made it easy to forget everything else. I forced a smile back, though my mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. "Did you try the lavender lemonade?" he asked, glancing toward a nearby stall. "It's supposed to be amazing." I nodded, though I wasn't really listening. My thoughts were tangled in the complexity of what we had begun, a secret that felt thrilling yet precarious. "I've been thinking about us," I finally said, feeling a rush of vulnerability. His eyes sparkled with intrigue. "What about us?" I hesitated, weighing my words carefully. Whatever this is, it feels intense." The words hung in the air like an unspoken agreement. There was an electricity between us that shimmered just beneath the surface. He stepped closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret meant only for me. "I think we both know there's something deeper here." His gaze bore into mine, and for a moment, I forgot everything, the life I had built, the man who loved me. The world around us faded as we stood there, caught in our own bubble of possibility. Then suddenly, without thinking or planning it out loud, we kissed, an impulsive act that sent shockwaves through me. As our lips met, a sense of urgency enveloped us both. It wasn't just physical, it felt like an awakening of emotions long buried under layers of routine and obligation. The kiss lingered longer than expected before we pulled away, breathless and wide-eyed. "I shouldn't have done that," I murmured, almost to myself. "Why not?" He challenged gently but earnestly. "Doesn't it feel right?" A part of me wanted to deny it, to push him away and retreat back into my safe but suffocating life, but another part craved this newfound excitement like air after being submerged underwater for too long. "I don't know," I admitted softly, guilt creeping back in like an unwelcome shadow. "It's complicated." He reached for my hand, intertwining our fingers with surprising tenderness. "Life is complicated," he replied simply. "But maybe this is what you need." His words resonated within me. They echoed truths I had buried deep down for years, truths about my marriage and my unfulfilled desires. But there was still hesitation, a nagging fear that clung tightly to my heart. As we wandered through the fair together, sampling foods and laughing at silly carnival games, I couldn't shake off that lingering sense of guilt weighing heavily upon me like an anchor keeping me from drifting too far from shore. "What do you want?" he asked suddenly as we paused near a booth selling handmade jewelry. I looked at him sharply, his question cut deeper than any casual inquiry should have. What did I want? Clarity eluded me like smoke slipping through fingers grasping desperately at something intangible. My voice trailed off as I searched for words that felt honest yet safe enough not to reveal too much about my turmoil. "Just say it," he urged gently. "I want to feel alive again," I confessed finally, a truth that tasted bittersweet on my tongue. He nodded slowly as if understanding more than I had intended to share. "Then let's take this one step at a time." That night unfolded with unexpected intimacy, a shared meal under twinkling lights and laughter spilling out like old friends reconnecting after years apart. We talked about dreams long forgotten and passions set aside in favor of responsibilities, a reminder of who we once were before settling into predictable patterns of life. Yet even amidst joy came uncertainty. Shadows lurked behind every smile exchanged between us, reminders that this connection existed within a fragile web spun from lies and secrecy. As dusk settled over Portland's skyline painted in hues of orange and purple, a breathtaking backdrop against which we stood, I felt drawn closer again by an invisible thread pulling taut between us until it snapped with urgency once more as we kissed again beneath those fading lights. But reality soon returned crashing back down when thoughts turned toward home, the husband waiting for me with trust in his eyes unaware of what brewed just beyond his sightline. The very foundation upon which our lives rested now threatened by choices made in stolen moments filled with longing and desire intertwined dangerously close together yet impossibly far apart when viewed from afar. In those brief moments shared beneath stars flickering overhead, I glimpsed not only excitement but also danger lurking beneath every whispered word exchanged. Each moment spent together brought forth conflicting feelings swirling within me like leaves caught in autumn winds refusing to settle down despite their best efforts at finding peace amid chaos surrounding them all around. As midnight approached, the fair began winding down. People slowly filtered out, leaving behind remnants of laughter echoing faintly through empty stalls while shadows deepened across cobblestone paths winding toward home where familiar comforts awaited yet now felt foreign, somehow transformed by secrets held tightly within. Fragile hearts entwined together against all odds. Yet even as darkness settled around us, I couldn't shake off that unsettling feeling creeping along edges where light dared not tread. A haunting reminder lurking just beyond reach, whispering warnings wrapped up tightly within layers crafted carefully over years spent building walls designed solely for protection against vulnerability exposed now raw against harsh realities threatening everything familiar left behind. We parted ways reluctantly outside the fairgrounds. Each step away from him felt heavier than before, as if leaving pieces behind scattered throughout memories forged anew during fleeting encounters filled with laughter joyfully shared while knowing full well consequences loomed ominously ahead waiting patiently just outside ready to pounce whenever least expected. And as I made my way homeward, the weight on my chest grew heavier still. A storm brewing inside threatening to unleash chaos upon everything once thought stable now teetering precariously on brink, uncertainty fueled by choices made without considering repercussions looming ahead waiting patiently just outside ready strike whenever least expected. The rain began to patter softly against the window as I stepped into my home, a familiar sanctuary that now felt foreign. The warmth of the living room enveloped me, yet it failed to soothe the turmoil within. Each tick of the clock echoed my internal conflict, reminding me of the choices I had made and the delicate balance I was now forced to navigate. My husband sat at the dining table, engrossed in his laptop. He looked up briefly, offering a distracted smile that felt more like an obligation than affection. "You're home late," he remarked, his tone casual but laced with an undercurrent of suspicion. "Just got caught up with some friends," I replied, forcing a lightness into my voice that didn't quite reach my eyes. The truth lingered just beneath the surface, a secret that threatened to spill over at any moment. As I moved toward the kitchen, my heart raced at the thought of what lay ahead, another evening spent pretending everything was normal while my mind replayed moments shared with him. The thrill of secrecy coursed through me like electricity. It was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. I poured myself a glass of wine, hoping its warmth would quell the anxiety bubbling beneath my skin. I couldn't shake off the memory of our last encounter, the way our lips met under the dim light of that bar, hidden from prying eyes yet so full of unspoken promises. It was both exhilarating and dangerous. Each rendezvous left me craving more while simultaneously gnawing at my conscience. The phone buzzed on the counter, jolting me from my reverie. My heart skipped as I glanced at it, his name lit up on the screen. A rush of excitement mingled with fear as I picked it up, glancing cautiously toward my husband who remained oblivious to my inner turmoil. "Can we meet tonight?" read his message. Simple yet loaded with implications that sent shivers down my spine. I hesitated for a moment before typing back, "Where?" The response came quickly, "Same place as before." My pulse quickened at the thought of sneaking away again. Each meeting felt like stepping closer to an edge I wasn't sure I wanted to fall over but couldn't resist inching toward anyway. "Everything okay?" My husband's voice broke through my thoughts again as he closed his laptop and turned his full attention toward me. There was something in his gaze, a flicker of concern mixed with curiosity, that made me want to retreat further into myself. "Yeah, just tired," I managed to say while trying to maintain an air of nonchalance. But inside, guilt churned violently. How could I look him in the eye when every fiber of my being longed for someone else? The evening wore on slowly. Dinner felt like an obligation rather than a shared experience. We discussed mundane topics, the weather, upcoming plans, but all I could think about was how soon I could escape into another world where emotions ran wild and rules were mere suggestions. Afterward, as he cleared away plates and washed dishes, I slipped outside for a breath of fresh air. The cool night enveloped me like a comforting embrace as I leaned against our porch railing, staring into the darkened street below where shadows danced under flickering streetlights. In those moments alone, clarity often emerged amidst chaos. Yet tonight only brought confusion. What did I truly want? The thrill or stability? Just then, a car pulled up across the street, a familiar vehicle that made my heart race anew. It was him, the best friend who had become so much more than just a friend in recent weeks. He stepped out casually and glanced around before making his way toward me. "Thought you might need some company," he said with a playful grin that sent warmth flooding through me despite everything else weighing heavily on my mind. "I can't just leave," I whispered urgently as he approached closer than was safe for either of us. His smile faded slightly as he leaned against the railing beside me. "What's stopping you? You deserve this, whatever this is." His voice dropped low and inviting. It wrapped around me like silk threads weaving together hopes and fears in one breathless moment. "I don't know how much longer we can keep doing this." My words came out almost pleadingly as if voicing them aloud would somehow make them more real and more terrifying. He reached out gently to brush a strand of hair behind my ear, a simple gesture that ignited something deep within me once again, a longing for connection and understanding that had been missing for far too long in my life. "We'll figure it out," he promised softly before leaning in closer until our lips met once again, this time under an open sky filled with stars witnessing our secret dance unfolding beneath their watchful gaze. But even in this stolen moment filled with passion and promise lingered uncertainty. What would happen next? And what would be left behind if we crossed lines too far? Suddenly, headlights swept across our faces from behind us, a car turning into our driveway, and panic surged through me like ice water coursing through veins long accustomed only to warmth and safety. "It's him." My voice trembled as realization hit hard. My husband had come outside looking for answers amidst shadows dancing dangerously close around us both. His silhouette appeared framed by light spilling from inside our home. Confusion etched across his features morphed quickly into something darker, a mixture of betrayal and hurt that struck deep within me like an arrow finding its mark in flesh unprepared for such pain. "What's going on here?" His voice cut through the night air thick with tension as both fear and adrenaline surged within every heartbeat, echoing loudly against silence suddenly shattered by revelation looming large before us all. The air hung heavy with unspoken words as my husband stared at us, his eyes darting between me and my friend. I could sense the shift in the atmosphere, a palpable tension that enveloped us. The thrill of our secret encounters had transformed into a precarious tightrope walk, and now it felt as if I was teetering on the edge. "Is this what you call friendship?" he asked, voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of pain. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. Instead, I felt the weight of my choices pressing down on me like a heavy cloak. My friend shifted slightly beside me, his presence both comforting and unnerving. "I can explain," I finally managed to say, though I wasn't sure what explanation would suffice for the tangled mess we had created. My heart raced as I caught a glimpse of my friend's expression, an unreadable mix of concern and guilt, as if he too understood the gravity of our situation. "Explain what?" My husband's gaze remained fixed on me. "That you've been lying to me? That you've found solace in someone else?" Each word was a dagger, piercing through the facade I had built around myself. My friend took a step back, creating distance between us, as if he could sense the impending fallout. The thrill we once shared had morphed into something darker, a reality that threatened to consume us all. "We've been talking," he said quietly, trying to diffuse the tension. "Talking?" My husband's voice rose slightly, disbelief evident in his tone. "Is that what you call it? Because it looks like more than just talking to me." I felt heat rush to my cheeks, shame washed over me like a cold wave. "We spent the night together," I blurted out before I could stop myself. The confession hung in the air like an accusation, both freeing and terrifying. Silence enveloped us again, thick and suffocating. My husband's face paled as he processed my admission. "So this isn't just some emotional affair then?" His voice dropped to a whisper tinged with betrayal. "You were looking for something more." In that moment of raw honesty, I understood that our lives would never be the same again. The exhilaration of secrecy had blinded me to the consequences awaiting us at every turn. My friend shifted uncomfortably. He seemed torn between wanting to comfort me and recognizing his role in this unraveling drama. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," I said softly, feeling tears prick at my eyes. "I just wanted to feel alive again." The admission tasted bitter on my tongue. Vulnerability was not something I wore easily. "Alive?" My husband echoed incredulously, shaking his head as if trying to dispel an unwanted thought. "What about our marriage? What about everything we've built together?" His words struck deep within me. They were reminders of promises made long ago, a life filled with laughter and companionship now overshadowed by secrets and lies. A part of me wanted to reach out and reassure him that it hadn't always been like this, that somewhere beneath the surface lay remnants of love still flickering faintly. But another part whispered for freedom from expectations and responsibilities, an urge fueled by months of stifled emotions finally spilling forth like an overflowing dam. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," I said again, desperate for understanding yet aware that my pleas might fall on deaf ears. My friend stepped forward slightly but hesitated when he saw my husband's glare directed toward him, a silent warning not to interfere further in a conversation already spiraling out of control. "Maybe we should all just take a step back," he suggested carefully, attempting diplomacy amidst chaos brewing before us. "No." My husband snapped sharply before turning back toward me with intensity blazing in his eyes. "You don't get to choose when you want clarity or peace after everything you've done." A silence settled between us once more, thick enough to cut through with a knife, until finally breaking under pressure when my friend spoke again. "We should talk about how we move forward from here." But how could we move forward when everything felt so irrevocably broken? The idea seemed absurd yet tantalizingly necessary all at once, the need for resolution battling against lingering desires for connection despite its destructive nature. "I don't know what moving forward looks like anymore," I admitted quietly while glancing sideways at him, the man who had become both refuge and tormentor within such a short span of time. He looked away then, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features, as though contemplating whether our bond was worth salvaging or destined only for ruin alongside everything else crumbling around us. "I think we need space," he finally said after what felt like an eternity stretched thin between breaths filled with regret hanging heavily above us all like storm clouds ready to burst forth any moment now. My heart sank further into despair knowing full well that space meant distancing ourselves from each other, a prospect terrifying enough without considering how much deeper wounds would fester left untreated over time spent apart, instead seeking healing together through open conversations grounded in trust rather than deceitful whispers hidden away beneath layers built upon fear alone. With each passing second ticking away painfully slow against silence thickening around us, I couldn't shake off feelings swirling within. Confusion mingled with guilt intertwined tightly around threads woven throughout years shared alongside someone who deserved better than betrayal meted out carelessly behind closed doors hidden from view until exposed starkly under unforgiving light shining brightly upon truths long buried deep down below surface-level facades crafted meticulously over time. Spent living life day by day pretending everything was fine when clearly nothing felt right anymore. And yet despite knowing all this, I still craved connection even now amidst chaos unraveling rapidly beyond reach, longing desperately for comfort found only within those fleeting moments shared beneath shadows cast long ago where laughter echoed softly against walls built strong enough withstand storms raging wild outside while holding tight onto memories cherished once upon time before. Darkness crept slowly inside. The air hung heavy with unspoken words as I navigated the delicate balance of my double life. Each encounter with my husband's best friend felt like walking a tightrope, and the thrill of secrecy had begun to sour. I found myself reflecting more often on the choices I had made, wondering if I was truly seeking fulfillment or merely escaping the reality of my marriage. One evening, I met him at a local brewery, a place bustling with laughter and clinking glasses. The atmosphere, once invigorating, now felt suffocating. As we settled into a quiet corner, his demeanor shifted subtly. He seemed distracted, his gaze flickering to the entrance frequently. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to pierce through the veil of unease hanging between us. "Just waiting for someone," he replied casually, but there was an edge to his voice that caught me off guard. A knot formed in my stomach as I realized that perhaps my presence wasn't enough anymore. As we sipped our drinks, he spoke about work and life in general, but his words felt hollow. The laughter that once flowed easily between us now felt forced. My mind raced with questions. Was he losing interest? Had our secret become too burdensome for him to bear? The weight of guilt pressed heavily on my chest, tightening its grip with each passing moment. Then it happened, she walked in. A woman who radiated confidence and charm, she seemed completely at ease in her skin. My heart sank as I watched him light up at her arrival. "Oh, this is Sarah," he introduced her with an enthusiasm that stung like salt on an open wound. "Nice to meet you," she said warmly, her smile genuine as she extended her hand toward me. "I've heard so much about you." I managed a polite smile while internally grappling with a rush of jealousy that threatened to spill over. Why hadn't he mentioned her before? Was this another layer of manipulation? As they chatted animatedly about shared interests and mutual friends, I felt increasingly invisible, a ghost in my own story. The conversation drifted away from me entirely as they exchanged inside jokes and playful banter. Each laugh from him felt like a dagger twisting deeper into my heart, reminders of what I had sacrificed for this fleeting connection. Suddenly, I was no longer just grappling with guilt, now there was jealousy mingling dangerously within it. "Do you want to join us for trivia night next week?" Sarah asked brightly after what felt like an eternity. Sure, he replied without hesitation, excitement evident in his tone. I forced myself to respond as well, but the words came out stilted and strained. Sounds fun. Inside me churned a storm of emotions too complex to articulate: anger at myself for feeling possessive over someone who wasn't mine, disappointment at how easily he'd moved on without acknowledging our connection, fear of losing everything altogether. After Sarah left, silence enveloped us again like an unwelcome shroud. What was that about? I finally asked when the tension became unbearable. What do you mean? He leaned back casually against his chair but didn't meet my eyes. That woman, you didn't mention her before. The accusation hung heavy between us. He shrugged nonchalantly, but there was something flickering behind his facade. Was it guilt or annoyance? Just someone from work. Right. My voice dripped sarcasm as irritation bubbled beneath the surface. Someone from work who knows all about me? He sighed heavily before responding with an edge in his tone that mirrored mine earlier. Look, it's not what you think. But how could it not be? The very foundation of what we shared had begun crumbling under the weight of secrets and lies woven intricately together until they formed an unrecognizable tapestry, one that now included someone else entirely. As we left the brewery that night, unease settled deeper within me than ever before, a sense that perhaps this wasn't just a passing phase but rather a turning point leading towards something irreversible. Days turned into weeks filled with confusion wrapped tightly around the threads connecting us both. The thrill once ignited by secrecy dulled into something darker lurking just beneath surface-level interactions laden heavily with tension instead of laughter shared openly without fear or hesitation. Then came the day when everything changed irrevocably, the moment when clarity emerged amidst chaos swirling endlessly around me like leaves caught in autumn winds refusing to settle down quietly until forced into submission by winter's grasp. I sat down at my kitchen table one morning after another restless night spent tossing and turning beneath sheets soaked through sweat brought on by anxiety gnawing relentlessly away inside me. My phone buzzed insistently against wood grain surface, drawing attention away from thoughts spiraling out control faster than I could catch up. The screen lit up displaying messages exchanged between him and another woman, a name unfamiliar yet painfully present within context unfolding right before eyes wide open staring blankly ahead unable to comprehend implications buried deep beneath mundane exchanges filled with casual remarks devoid any emotional depth. My breath hitched sharply catching in throat while realization dawned slowly yet undeniably clear. This wasn't just another fling. It was betrayal laid bare under harsh light illuminating truths long hidden away behind closed doors once thought safe haven turned prison instead suffocating slowly every breath taken within confines built carefully over years spent crafting illusions meant protect. Hearts vulnerable exposed raw edges yearning desperately connection lost somewhere along way. And then came the final twist unraveling everything further still. Amidst those messages lay hints suggesting he'd been seeing someone else all along. Someone who hadn't just entered our lives briefly but rather carved out space intentionally designed to replace whatever bond once existed between us both, leaving nothing behind except echoes fading softly into silence left behind shattered pieces scattered across ground where trust used to flourish freely untainted by doubt creeping steadily forward. Until finally consuming all hope remaining intact. In that moment clarity pierced through fog surrounding mind clouded by confusion revealing stark truth laid bare before me. Choices made were leading nowhere good. A path filled only darkness waiting patiently ahead beckoning closer each day edging ever nearer threatening pull further down abyss where light barely reached anymore. The tension in the air was palpable. A silent scream echoing through the space between us as my husband's eyes bore into mine. I could feel my heart racing, each beat a reminder of the precarious edge I had been teetering on for so long. He hadn't said a word yet, but the weight of unspoken accusations hung heavily over our dinner table, where uneaten food lay cold and untouched. "Is there something you want to talk about?" he finally asked, his voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of hurt. The question hung there like a noose. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words formed. How could I explain the tangled web of emotions that had led me here? The thrill of secret meetings, the fleeting moments of connection that felt like lifelines thrown into my sea of discontent. Instead, I forced a smile that felt more like a grimace. No, everything's fine. He didn't buy it. His gaze narrowed slightly, and for a moment, I could see the flicker of pain in his eyes, an emotion I had been trying to shield him from. You've been distant lately, he said quietly. I can feel it. The truth clawed at my throat, threatening to spill out in an avalanche of confessions. But what good would it do? My friend had already begun to withdraw from both me and her. Perhaps he sensed the impending storm brewing within our lives. I could almost hear him saying it now, this was never supposed to happen. The thought stung more than it should have. As we sat in silence, memories flooded back, our laughter at local bars, shared glances at farmers' markets filled with vibrant produce and bustling crowds. Those moments once brought joy, now they were ghostly reminders of what had slipped through my fingers. My husband cleared his throat, pulling me back to the present. Are you seeing someone? His question cut through the silence like a knife. I flinched but quickly masked my reaction with feigned surprise. What? No. Of course not. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms defensively over his chest. Then why do I feel like there's something you're not telling me? That question echoed hauntingly in my mind as I struggled to maintain composure. The truth was too messy, too complicated, a chaotic jumble of emotions that didn't fit neatly into any explanation I could offer him. Maybe we should talk about us, I suggested weakly, hoping to deflect his probing gaze away from the real issue at hand. His expression softened momentarily before hardening again. We can talk about whatever you want, he replied cautiously. But it won't change how things have felt lately. A knot formed in my stomach as dread settled over me like a heavy blanket. How much longer could I keep this charade going? How long before everything crumbled around us? The next few days passed in a blur of anxiety and guilt as my mind raced with thoughts of both men, the one who had once been my rock and the other who had become an unexpected source of emotional turmoil. My husband continued to press for answers while pretending everything was normal during family dinners and casual outings with friends. But nothing felt normal anymore. Then came that fateful evening when everything spiraled out of control. I returned home late after an exhausting day at work, hoping for solace in familiar surroundings only to find my husband sitting on the couch with his phone clutched tightly in his hand, a look of betrayal etched across his face as he glanced up at me. Where have you been? He asked sharply. I told you, I went out with some coworkers, I replied defensively as panic surged within me at the sight of his expression. I saw your texts, he shot back without hesitation, each word laced with accusation. My heart sank into an abyss as reality crashed down around me like waves against jagged rocks. He knew about us, the late-night chats filled with longing and frustration, every message exchanged under the guise of friendship now laid bare before him like open wounds festering under sunlight. What do you mean? My voice trembled as denial fought against overwhelming guilt clawing its way up from deep within me. You think I wouldn't notice? His voice rose slightly before dropping again into a tone thick with disappointment. I trusted you. The room spun around me as shame washed over every inch of my being. The man who had stood by me through thick and thin now looked at me like a stranger lost amidst shadows cast by deceitful actions born from yearning for something more than what we had built together over years spent loving one another fiercely yet quietly fading away into complacency. I'm sorry, was all I managed to whisper before feeling utterly exposed beneath his piercing gaze. No longer able to hide behind walls built over time designed solely for protection against truths too painful to confront head-on until they were thrust upon us unceremoniously without warning or preparation whatsoever. He shook his head slowly, disbelief mingled with sorrow etched across features once familiar, now twisted by revelations, unearthing cracks running deep beneath surface-level appearances, masking deeper issues left unresolved far too long. Issues we both needed courage enough to face together, instead allowing them fester until they exploded violently, leaving devastation behind. "Is this really happening?" he murmured softly, almost incredulously, while still staring straight through me, searching desperately for answers buried somewhere deep inside, layers upon layers shielding raw vulnerability hidden beneath facade carefully constructed over years spent building life together, filled laughter, tears, love, memories shared. But those memories felt distant now, echoes fading softly into silence, left behind shattered pieces scattered across ground where trust used flourish freely, untainted by doubt, creeping steadily forward until finally consuming all hope remaining intact. And just like that, the man who once held my heart now stood poised on brink, ready to walk away, leaving nothing but emptiness behind. The silence in the room was suffocating, punctuated only by the sound of my husband's steady breathing. He stood across from me, arms crossed tightly over his chest, a familiar look of disappointment etched into his features. I could see the questions swirling in his mind, the hurt festering beneath the surface. I had never been good at lying. My heart raced as I searched for words that could somehow bridge this chasm we'd created. "Why?" he finally asked, his voice low but tinged with an edge of desperation. "Why would you do this to us?" I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. What could I say? That I had been seeking a thrill to fill the void? That in trying to find myself, I had lost everything that mattered? The weight of my choices pressed down on me like a heavy blanket. "I didn't mean for it to happen," I managed to whisper, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. "I just wanted something more." He shook his head slowly, disappointment morphing into something colder, betrayal. "You wanted more? With him?" The accusation hung in the air like a dark cloud, and I flinched at the thought of his best friend's name lingering between us. In those moments, the world outside faded away, the bustling streets of Portland, the laughter from nearby bars, and even the warmth of our home felt distant and uninviting. All that remained was this unbearable reality. I had betrayed not just my husband but also a friendship that had weathered years. "I thought," his voice cracked slightly as he continued, "I thought we were happy." A part of me wanted to scream that we hadn't been happy in ages, that we were two people living parallel lives under one roof, but another part craved to cling to what little hope remained. "We can work through this," I offered weakly. His expression hardened further. "Work through what?" "You've crossed a line." There was no mistaking the finality in his tone, it echoed off the walls like an unyielding truth. As he turned away from me, I felt an overwhelming sense of loss wash over me, not just for our marriage but for everything else that had unraveled alongside it. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, a message from him. My heart sank at the thought, how could he still reach out after everything? But as if sensing my turmoil, he glanced back at me one last time before walking out of our home and into an uncertain night. The door clicked shut with a finality that sent tremors through my body. Alone now, I felt like a ship adrift without an anchor. In those first few hours of solitude, memories flooded back, our shared laughter at local breweries, quiet moments spent wandering farmers' markets hand in hand, all overshadowed by betrayal's cruel shadow. The emotional roller coaster I'd embarked upon with my husband's friend now seemed like a distant thrill rather than an escape. But then came another realization. He had cut ties too, no messages or calls since that fateful day when everything spiraled out of control. A gnawing emptiness filled me as I recognized that both relationships were now lost to me. Days passed slowly. Each morning greeted me with reminders of what once was. A half-empty coffee cup on our kitchen table where we used to share breakfast together became a painful reminder of absence rather than intimacy. One evening, while cleaning out drawers filled with remnants of old memories, photos from trips taken long ago and notes exchanged during happier times, I stumbled upon an old journal filled with reflections on love and life choices made throughout our years together. Flipping through its pages reminded me of who I'd been before all this chaos began, a woman who valued honesty and connection above fleeting pleasures. In a moment of clarity amidst despair, I picked up my phone and scrolled through contacts until reaching his name, the friend who had become so much more than just a companion in secretive encounters but also an architect of emotional upheaval in my life. My fingers hovered over the screen as doubt crept back in. Would reaching out only deepen my wounds or perhaps offer some closure? A text slipped through, "Can we talk?" No response came for hours. Each minute stretched painfully long until finally there it was. "I don't think it's good for either of us." His words stung like salt on fresh wounds. There would be no reconciliation here either. Feeling more isolated than ever before, I turned inward once again, wondering how many bridges I'd burned while chasing shadows instead of nurturing what truly mattered. Maybe therapy would help unravel this tangled mess inside me, the shame and guilt intertwined with desires unmet and dreams deferred. As days turned into weeks without any sign from either man who once played pivotal roles in shaping my life's narrative, moments spent alone became increasingly introspective, a search for understanding buried beneath layers built up over years spent avoiding vulnerability. One afternoon while sitting on a park bench overlooking the Willamette River, a place where we'd often shared quiet conversations, I noticed another couple laughing together nearby. Their joy radiated warmth that felt foreign yet inviting amid my self-imposed exile from happiness. In their laughter echoed memories long forgotten, the simple pleasure found within connection rekindling hope buried deep beneath layers formed by betrayal's cruel hands. Perhaps rebuilding trust wouldn't be impossible after all. Perhaps forgiveness could come if only I allowed myself to embrace vulnerability fully rather than hide behind walls erected out fear or shame. But just then, a familiar figure approached along the path leading toward me, my husband's silhouette unmistakable against Portland's fading light as dusk settled around us like an embrace waiting patiently for resolution. "Can we talk?" His voice broke through silence surrounding us both as uncertainty lingered between two hearts once intertwined yet now frayed at edges where love met betrayal head-on. And suddenly everything felt precarious again. The fragile balance between hope and despair hanging delicately by threads spun from choices made long ago. "Can we talk?" His voice broke through the silence surrounding us both as uncertainty lingered between two hearts once intertwined yet now frayed at edges where love met betrayal head-on. I hesitated, the weight of his words pressing down on me like a lead blanket. My heart raced, each beat echoing the turmoil within. The kitchen, usually a sanctuary filled with warmth and laughter, felt cold and unwelcoming. I nodded slowly, unsure of what would come next. "About us," he continued, his gaze steady yet searching. "I need to understand what's happening." The air thickened with tension. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind countless times, but reality was far more daunting. My thoughts darted back to the late nights spent in secret with his best friend, each stolen moment now tainted by guilt and regret. "I think we need to be honest," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. He took a step closer, his expression softening but still wary. "Honesty is what I crave right now. I can sense something's off." I swallowed hard, wrestling with the urge to confess everything. The kisses shared under the cover of night, the whispered promises that felt so real at the time. But how could I shatter the fragile peace we had maintained? "I've been feeling disconnected," I finally admitted, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Things have changed between us." He sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "Disconnected? Is that all it is? You've been distant for months." His words stung more than I anticipated. Each accusation felt like a dagger aimed at my heart. "I didn't mean to hurt you," I said quickly. "And yet you have," he replied, his voice low and steady as if he were bracing himself for impact. I could see the pain etched into his features, a mixture of confusion and betrayal that mirrored my own internal chaos. I just. Before I could finish my thought, he interrupted me again. Are you seeing someone else? The question hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. My breath caught in my throat as panic surged through me. How could he suspect? Had he found out about the texts? No. It's not like that, I protested too quickly. He narrowed his eyes, searching for truth behind my words. Then why do you feel so far away? Why do you spend so much time out? The memories flooded back, each clandestine meeting filled with laughter and shared secrets that now felt like chains binding me tighter in guilt's grasp. I'm just trying to find myself again, I said weakly. Find yourself? He echoed incredulously. What about us? What about our life together? A knot tightened in my stomach as shame washed over me like an icy wave. This was not how it was supposed to be. Love was meant to be simple and pure, not riddled with deceit and longing for something more. I'm sorry, I murmured again, desperate for understanding but knowing it was futile. He stepped back as if distancing himself from my confession, and from me altogether, and bitterness crept into his tone when he spoke again. You're sorry? That's it? In that moment of raw honesty between us, something shifted irreversibly within me. Clarity emerged from chaos as if illuminated by an unseen light. Yet before I could grasp this newfound understanding fully or articulate it into something meaningful, a sudden knock at our door jolted us both from our emotional standoff. What now? He muttered under his breath before moving toward the entrance. As he opened the door to reveal an unexpected visitor, my husband's best friend, my heart plummeted into an abyss of dread and uncertainty. Hey! He greeted cheerfully but faltered when he noticed our tense expressions lingering in the room behind us. Can we talk? The words came out before I could stop them. They echoed with desperation as if seeking salvation from this chaotic spiral of events spiraling beyond control. My husband glanced back at me sharply before stepping aside to let him enter, a gesture laden with unspoken tension between three lives intertwined in ways none of us had anticipated or wanted. What's going on? My friend asked innocently enough but seemed oblivious to the underlying storm brewing beneath our surface smiles. Now caught between two worlds, one filled with love and loyalty while another beckoned seductively toward forbidden desires, I felt myself teetering on a precipice that threatened everything familiar and safe. I think we need to discuss some things, my husband said finally after an agonizing pause that stretched painfully long across all three of us standing there together yet worlds apart emotionally. And just like that, the fragile thread holding our lives together began unraveling further still. In subsequent moments filled only by awkward glances exchanged between them both, my husband's guarded expression contrasting sharply against my friend's feigned nonchalance, I sensed impending doom looming over us all like dark clouds gathering on an otherwise clear day. I don't know how much longer we can keep pretending. My voice faltered again as despair clawed its way back into focus amidst this tangled web spun from choices made long ago without careful consideration or foresight into consequences awaiting each turn taken along this path paved by secrecy alone. But before either man could respond or offer any semblance of comfort amidst chaos erupting around us, all hell broke loose when another knock resounded against our door once more. This time it wasn't just anyone, it was someone who would irrevocably change everything once again, the woman introduced into our circle by him earlier who had sparked jealousy within me without warning mere days prior. And suddenly everything felt precarious again. The fragile balance between hope and despair hanging delicately by threads spun from choices made long ago.